All right, I am starting. So this is what you learned yesterday. And a lot of you got to this point, and that's really great. So a lot of you did this, and I was really happy to see that you at least did a little bit of it. Give me one sec. Okay, you told me that the cubed root is x, and the cubed root was 5. And that was correct. Those are your magic numbers. I call them magic numbers because we're going to use them to do this problem. If you weren't here, remember you want to press math, number 4, and you're going to get something that looks like the cube root. You don't have to write that. But for those that weren't here, if you want to do the cube root of 125, you have to press math 4, and that's going to be how you get that. Okay, so with that said, I like to set mine up. It's always the same sign, which is positive, the opposite sign, which is negative, and then it's always positive because it's soap. Same sign, opposite sign, always positive. Okay? So I'm going to use those magic numbers that I told you first. Now a lot of you got to that point and then you put x minus 5. That's difference of 2 squares. We're in cube. So whenever you see a 3, you need to do this process. If you saw a 2, you would do the other. So we're going to take this first guy and we're going to square him so we get x squared. The middle one, we multiply them together. I get 5x. Then I do this last guy and I square him and I get 25. And that's why it is D. And if you have a multiple choice option on the test, which you will, you can cross off things because it's always same sign, opposite sign, always positive.
What's up, Parker?
Hey, Parker. How's it going?
He was MVP in basketball.
He was in my class this year, right, Parker? All right, here we go. Do you have any questions on the bell ringer? Yes. The middle one. All I do is I multiply the 2 magic numbers that I have. So I multiplied x times 5, which gets me 5x. Or x5, but I like to write the variable last. Okay, so that guy did that. For this one, I did my first magic number and I squared it. For this guy, I did 5 and I squared it. Okay? Good questions. Again, on the test, you might have multiple choice. You should be able to like, okay, I know for a fact it's not going to be that. Okay, because again, when you have a cube here, it should be 1 and then a big long one. The same thing with this guy. We know it's not going to be that. It should have been process of elimination. You really don't have to do any work. Think about it. Soap, same opposite always positive. Same sign, opposite always positive. It couldn't be this one. You could have crossed all 3 of those out without doing any work. Okay? All right, get out your homework and check your answers. Okay? Got it? There you go. All right, now let's do some problems. Again, this could be really fast and we can end early. We can play. I have games in the back. We just got to get going. So, factoring out the GCF. So, this is the first time that we learned something about factoring is when we factor out just a common factor. So, we need to first find our GCF. What is the greatest number that goes into 15, 40, and 10? 5. Very good. Okay, 5 is the greatest number that goes into all 3 of them.
Put an X, right?
Yes, but just x? Remember, how many x's can I pull out?
3.
Can I pull 3 out of 2? No, so what do you think it is? It's 2. Very good. Hi. Okay, remember, it's always the smallest exponent. So I'm going to actually highlight this right here, and I'm going to highlight that so you know it's always the smallest when you're doing these problems. Yeah, it's all good. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to divide each one by 5x squared because that's what you do when you're factoring out a GCF. So I know that you don't have a lot of room, but try to write as small as possible. We won't have that much more to do after this part. Getting that GCF is probably the hardest part. Okay, then I'm going to, yes. Yes. So we have 5x squared on the outside. because that's our GCF. Now here we go. 1 by 1. What is 15 divided by 5? 3. Okay, what's x to the 4th divided by x squared? Not 2, okay? I know what you're talking about though. When you divide, you subtract exponents. So 4 minus 2. If you need to make a note of that for yourself because you forgot, please do that. You might need to go over to the side and be like, you're going to subtract exponents when you divide. Okay, so if that's something that you need to have in there to be reminding you, then please put that in. Bring down the plus sign. What's 40 divided by 5?
7.
Careful.
8.
8. It's okay. And then x cubed divided by x squared. X. Yep. Okay, kind of think of it this way. I have 3 x's on top. I get rid of 2. Oh, I get rid of 2 of them. So now I have 1. It's kind of how that works. I had 4 on top. I got rid of 2 of them. So now I have 2 left. Okay, minus, what's 10 divided by 5? Just 2. And then those x squareds will cancel. So that's all. That's how you factor out a GCF. Do you have a question on that one? That's the answer. Okay. Okay, so that was the very first thing we did last week when we did factoring. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
Is the GCF just X?
So this one, we have 3. Okay, so when we have 3, sometimes we can factor out a GCF and sometimes we can't.
GCF is 7.
Well, we can't factor 7 out of 1. There's no GCF in this situation. So let's take a look. It says, I gave you directions on the other side of how you would do these problems. Okay, this is when A is equal to 1. This is what we learned a couple days ago with those magic numbers. You go right to the end.
You cross?
We'll get there. So again, remember you want to find the factors. I wrote this for you guys. Remember, 4. Remember, you do A times C, and adds to B. Okay, I kind of wrote that out for you on the left side in case you need something to look off of. So let's do that problem over here then. So I have a 1 out in front. I'm going to put that there just so that you know that. What is 1 times 49? Just 49. So what multiplies to 49 and adds to what number? Good, I heard it, and adds to 14. So what multiplies to 49 and adds to 14. So I'm going to write all of these out because I want to make sure that you understand when you're taking your quiz or your test how to do these. So I'm going to write all of them out just for the sake of notes. So I have 1 in 49. That one doesn't work. Does 2 go into 49? What about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Yeah, 7 and 7. Okay, so those ones work. Then I'm going to come off to the right side and say, well, if I add them, I'm going to get, I'm going to get 14. So I am good. I found my numbers. So I found my numbers. My numbers are 7 and 7. Those are my magic numbers. Now, when A is 1, this is a fun one where you go right to the end. Okay? When this is a fun one, we do x plus 7 and x plus 7. And you're done. So whenever A is 1, you can do that. Remember, this is your A value. A is 1. I can go right to the end. That's why I love when A is 1. It's a lot faster.
Wait, it's not like x plus 7 and x minus 7, it's x plus 8 minus
Yep, because we're not doing difference of 2 squares. We're just doing normal factoring.
But if it was a negative on top, then it would have been X minus 7, right?
If this was negative?
Yeah, if any number was negative, would there be a minus sign in between X?
If this was negative, then they'd both be negative. But that's just a different problem. Okay, you would want to approach that a different way. Okay, so let's do this next one. This one's a hard one. This is the one that you'd really want to focus on. Okay, this is our favorite one. The A is 1. This one's when it's not 1. So the 6, you see that is not 1. Go off to the side here. Please put a slash here. I couldn't put a slash in there, so I wanted to make sure that you had that. So on the left side, put A does not equal 1. Because this is a situation where A doesn't equal 1. And this is your A value. It's what you're looking at. Okay, that A. So if you want to highlight that so you know what A I'm talking about, when A does not equal 1, it's this guy. Okay? So this is the harder one. So this is the one everyone's like, I need more practice on this one. So make sure that you're really focused. And I'm sorry you don't have a lot of room. Just try your best to write a little bit smaller today. Okay. We still do the same thing. What multiplies to 6 times negative 10, which is what? Negative 60. Very good. But then it adds to what number? Good. Adds to negative 11. Do you have questions on that part? Okay. I'm going to write out my factors. I have 1 and 60. That's not going to get me 11. Does 2 go in there? 2 and what number? 30. Okay, but that doesn't work. Okay, does 3 go into 60? 3 and what number? 20. Is that going to get me 11?
Is it 6, 10?
It might be. We'll find out. We'll find out. I want to write all of them out for everyone so that you have it. So 4, does 4 work into 60? 4 and what? 15? Is that going to get me 11 somehow? Yeah. So now I just need to figure out my signs. That's when I come over here and I figure out my signs. So I have 4 and I have 15. One of them has to be negative. Which one? So put that in your calculator. 15 minus 4, you're going to get positive 11. I want negative. So that's why I have to put the negative here. So these are my magic numbers. Remember, you come off to the side here and test it on your calculator. Do negative 4 plus 15. Oh, that doesn't get me negative 11. But if I do 4 minus 15, it does. So now here's where we have to do factor by grouping, but we got this. We have to break down this middle term into the factors, those magic numbers that I told you about. We can't go right to the end because A is not 1. So this is the only really tough one, is this guy right here. So I'm going to break it down into 4x and negative 15x, because those are my magic numbers. Again, you can do that because when you add them together, you do get 11, negative 11. Bring down the other ones because nothing changed. I didn't change any of this part yet. From here, you guys were pretty good at it. This is like the coloring activity that you had. I have to group the first 2 and then group the second 2. Yes, that's coming up. So I'm going to group the first 2, group the second 2. And I know you don't have a lot of space, but try your best to write as neat as possible. Now I was told that the GCF for this guy, I'm going to put GCF over here, is 2x, and you're correct. Now go in order. What is 6 divided by 2? 3. What is x squared divided by x? X. Good. What is, ooh, come on. Careful. What is 4 divided by 2? 4 divided by 2. 2. And then the x's cancel. Divided by. It's okay. It's okay. We're almost there. What's the GCF of this next guy? Good. Just 5, though. Think about it, though. What do they both have? A negative. You need to pull out the negative. If you don't, you're going to get a little bit like, well, why? It's kind of right, but the signs are off. This is the tough one. I know you got to bear with me on this guy. Yep, so I put negative 5 on the side, and what's left inside? Well, negative 15 divided by negative 5 becomes a positive. And then what's negative 10 divided by negative 5? 2. Now do you see that I have the same thing in both of them? We're almost done. We just got one more step. I want you with your 2 different color highlighters to highlight what's common, and then I want you to highlight what is on the outside of what's common. Because that's how you're going to write this then. Your final answer is 3x plus 2 2x minus 5. Again, that is the hardest problem. Factoring by grouping is the hardest part. This guy. So make sure every little piece is on your interactive notebook. I'm going to give you a minute just to make sure you have everything perfectly written down, because that's what you're going to need probably the most to look off of is this guy out of all of the ones. And if you want to put steps, I did step 1 here, then I did step 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. If you're wanting to put steps, you don't have to if you know how to do it. But that's the order I did things, in case you get confused when you look back at your notes. These next ones you like the most, so these ones should fly by. Okay, these ones are the easy ones. Looks like we're ready. You guys like these? These are difference of 2 squares. This is what we just did yesterday. You guys really like these. Remember, I'm going to highlight something. This is a squared. Okay, that's important. Difference of 2 squares. Some people were doing cubes on the homework yesterday on the front page when it was a square. So, what is the square root of 9? 3. What about x squared?
11.
Ooh, that's 11 here. The square root of x squared is x. So I'm going to circle my magic numbers. I call them magic numbers. Okay? Now here's the easy part.
Plus and negative.
Yeah, plus and negative. So 3x plus 11 and 3x minus 11. And you're done. Okay, so some of them are hard and some of them are very easy, like this guy. But you have to recognize that they're perfect squares. Okay, 121 is a perfect square. So is 9. That's why we can do that. And if you were to do the claw, you would prove to yourself that it was correct. Next one, factor by grouping. Now, it's easier than the one that we just did before this because we don't have to do all that hard stuff by finding out what goes into what. However, we have to group the first 2 still and group the second 2 when we factor this. What is a GCF of just this front? Just x though?
Squared.
X squared, very good. My GCF here is going to be x squared. Remember, it's always the smallest exponent. What's the GCF of the second group?
Just x. No,
It's
x.
5. Very good. Do you see that there's no x here?
Oh.
I can't pull out an x, but I can pull out a 5.
But wouldn't there be an exponent underneath? No, right?
An exponent? Where?
Never.
Are you sure? Okay. So then we're going to write this out now. I'm going to pull out the x squared. And what's left over? X cubed divided by x squared. I subtract the exponents and I get x. These x squareds cancel and I just get minus 3. Do this guy in blue. I'm going to write that positive 5 on the outside that you told me my GCF was. These cancel, 5 and 5. I'm left with x. What's 15 divided by 5?
5.
Careful.
3.
3. And this is what you should be happy about when you have the same thing inside. So use those 2 highlighters to help you out. You're going to pull out what's highlighted in blue, x minus 3. And what is left over is x squared plus 5. And we're done. Okay. Do you have questions on that one? The quiz on Monday will just have 1 of each. Okay, nothing too hard. So as long as you have all of these written down very nicely, you will have something to look off of on Monday. Okay, and then we're going to move on because it shouldn't take the whole period. Okay, last one. This is the SOAP. So I want you to highlight the SOAP part. Same sign, opposite, always positive. You have to look at that sign. I gave you both formulas so that you don't even have to think about it though, because if you have a positive, you're just going to use this guy. If you have a negative, you're just going to use this guy. Okay, so use this to help you if you get stuck. Like, how did we get that first number? Okay, I squared it. How did I get the middle one? I multiplied them together. Tommy's confirming back there. Okay. Now, this is when you use that math 4. So maybe on the side, if you have any room anywhere in this area, you want to press math number 4 for your calculator. Okay, that's super important if you don't remember that, how to do that. Math 4. Did you find it?
Is it 3?
Huh? And then the number 4.
Wouldn't it be 3x squared?
Like that?
You can see like a little cube in there?
Yeah.
Yep, that's it. So I'm going to do the cube root of 27, which is what?
3x squared.
3x. So remember, x cubed, the cubed root of it is just x. Because why? Think about this. You don't have to write this down. But think, x times x times x gets me x cubed. That's what you're looking for. You only have one of them. You have one x. Think about 27. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. That's where this is coming from. You're asking yourself, what times itself will get me that number? That's why it's 3, and that's why it's x. Does that make sense? Because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So that's why that is. Now, what's the cubed root of 8? 2. Okay? So here's where again, this is all just a pattern. You got to get used to it, and then you're going to be done. It's pretty straightforward once you find these magic numbers. So your best things here. You need to use them. So I have my groups of parentheses. I always do my signs first just to help me out. You don't have to. It's the same sign. What's the opposite? Good. And always positive. So I need to fill in each one of these spots. So if you weren't here yesterday, this is what we did. You have to fill in each one of these spots. It's always going to be the same of your magic numbers. So 3x and 2. This first guy, you're going to square the first magic number. So I'm going to square the first magic number. That's where this is coming from. Well, what is 3 squared? 9. So I have 9x squared. Do you have a question on that part? Okay, I'm going to come down here then, and I'm going to multiply them together. So I'm going to multiply that 3x times 2. What is 3x times 2? 6x. And this very, 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 very last one here, I'm taking my last magic number, 2, and I'm going to square it. Well, what is 2 squared? 4, and that's my final answer. Okay, so I would write these down so that you know them, put little arrows, so that you know where they came from. I'm using my magic numbers that I found to solve for. So I'm going to leave that up, and then the rest of the time is yours because you did really well. I know factoring is very tough.
Can we cut it?
Oh yes, please cut it and then put it in your notebook. That's a good idea. It's going to look like this. That way when you